Welcome, agents.
Happy Friday, happy finale.
Happy finale.
Yes. We've loved seeing all of your wonderful comments.
Yeah.
And let us know if you're joining us. We're going to take all your questions. We're going to discuss all kinds of things.
Today has been fun, I hope for you, but also for us, because I feel like we've spent the last couple months...
year,
but last couple months cheering you on, and it's really nice to have us cheered on.
Yes.
We've apprecied your kind comments.
Wow, thank you. Oh,
Great.
Good. So, there were a couple of questions that we got on through Facebook and emails and various things. So,
and we're
I think you need to rename this wow. Oh, good. But the thing is, you can't oversell it. I mean, I did think we told you it will be unlike any other quilt you've ever made. And I'm guessing that was the case.
Yeah, and it's one of the things for us that we've really enjoyed with these Quiltalongs is because our approach is to create something that will be different for everybody. It makes us think differently about design, and we want every quilt to be unique. And so it's honestly a little nerve-wracking because we're usually really excited about it. We're just like, I hope they like it. I hope they like it.
Oh, so great to see everybody tuning in from around the country. And I think our Australian friends will probably be able to join us with this. We'll just start taking questions.
I think I'm seeing Barbara's comment of, did you start with the final design or build up to it?
You have to start with the final design.
So when we're doing something like this, it's very different from when we're just designing a regular pattern because it has to have a certain level of complexity that allows itself to be revealed over multiple weeks. There's got to be narrative built in. And in this case, we always start out sketching lots and lots and lots of ideas. And someone asked on Facebook about the collaboration aspect. So
I'm writing down questions as they pop up.
She's going to watch.
Yeah.
But I thought I'd really quickly talk about, it's not like we have the idea and we know exactly what it's going to be. We have...
Wait. Please restate that. It's an iteration process.
Right. Well,
we do know by the time we are getting you to pay for the pattern.
But I'm backing up.
Yeah.
I'm backing up.
Let's be clear.
Before it's even announced, there are months of development. And we wanted to design something that would work with the transparency quilt fabric line that we were doing. And we had many variations of what this could look like. And then one day Weeks said to me, concentric squares.
I'd like to back up. Because I think...
Okay, we're going to have different recollections. It's so many...
No, I think you need to go farther back.
Okay.
That we wrote this book 10 years ago.
Transparency quilts. And quilting books have a short life typically. And
we tried to teach this technique in classes, but when we would get to classes, nobody had the right fabrics. Even if they had the book, for whatever reason, it was just too big a leap for a lot of people. So we started in November of 22 talking with Benartex about seeing if there was a way that we could have a fabric line timed for this event, which is extremely hard to do.
Yeah.
It's just hard to get the ships to align.
Literally the ships.
Yeah. But I had felt that if we wanted to really truly teach this technique well, based on all the years of classes that 10 years of classes that we tried to teach, that we needed to have a fabric line so people could see it come together and be successful.
And we wanted to design a quilt that we weren't just saying, hey, do this, but rather that by doing it, you would understand how the fabric worked. So after you had done this, you could make other quilts with this fabric line or with your stash that kind of use this transparency concept. So we had lots and lots of sketches, and there are a lot of constraints. We want to design something that you can each have your unique imprint on, that you can, even if you were using our fabrics, there had to be something that you could customize it.
So so this is kind of the situation, the background. There are only, if you're a fabric designer, you have to have, the collection can only have so many SKUs, which just means like prints within the line, like the number of fabrics in the line, because if it gets too big, shops don't want to buy it. And so there was that number, which is kind of maxed out typically at around 24. And then there was also, we knew that we wanted to do the darks and lights as two different
two groups of 12.
2 groups of 12. So there was that constraint. And then we heard you in our last 2 Quiltalongs where you said that you wanted to have a quilt that wasn't identical to everybody else's. And that was a huge, that was a big, it was like with a megaphone, we heard that.
You.
And so we were trying to, we started in November of 22 working with Better Text to see, like, if we plan this far in advance, can we get the ships into the warehouse, you know, everything at one time. So so we started all that, and then we started to try to figure out how can we design something where even if you use the fabric, you will have choices that make your quilt unique, because we heard that that was important to you. And so,
and then on top of that, we had a line with all these fabrics, and we wanted to be able to use a fat quarter bundle to make a quilt, which kind of,
so it would be affordable for you.
And we wanted to make a quilt. Our last Quiltalongs were napping size. We thought we wanted to do something that we were seeing a lot of people finish these on domestic machines. We thought, let's do a wall hanging. And so there's the math of how do you use the fat quarters efficiently and kind of equally and make a stunning quilt. So it's just all these layers of complexity.
Yeah. So then, you know, we started looking at the idea of the concentric squares as opportunities for the luminosity of the transparency.
But we also knew that we've done some transparency quilts, which are kind of minimal, beautiful, minimal, I think, transparency. But there had to be another level of complexity to kind of engage everyone over a 6-week period. So that's why you have layers of transparency and there are layers of structure. And then we developed this, when we started thinking about the secret agent and things hiding and revealing, the concept of color code came about. And so we then had to prototype every design in about 12 different variations to make sure it would work. So anyway, I want to get to other questions, but I thought, I saw on my desk, I just had pages of sketches and ideas and notes from conversations of early ideas that evolved. And I was going to open up my notebook, but I can't give away stuff that's on the same pages that has to do with future Quiltalongs.
Yes.
But we both keep sketchbooks all the time and sketch these things out. So that's a little bit about that process. The collaboration itself, though, is like one of us has an idea and we bounce it off each other, and it just we talk it through.
Did you show those iterations?
So very quickly, but here
so these are other things that we considered.
Some very early iterations where you can see the bands of transparency, and we started looking at forms, thinking, how much do we want to use curves?
How much will you freak out?
How much will you freak out? What is manageable? What skills do we want to kind of reinforce?
Yeah.
So these are just, we have pages of these, but I hope that gives you a little bit. Now you've been taking notes.
Yeah, I've been taking notes. Okay.
I just had an eye doctor appointment. My eyes are dilated, so I can't read anything on the screen easily.
So there was a comment about the person who said that mystery quilts make them nervous. And I wanted to address that because the reason that we like this format so much is that we hear over and over and over again that not knowing, there are some people for whom they cannot do the mystery quilt. The lack of control is too stressful for them, and that's fine. But for those that do it, the reward is that we hear over and over and over again that I would never have thought I could have made that quilt.
Or if I had seen it first, I would have been intimidated by it.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought I could be successful. And so that is why we are sticking to this format, that we really feel that when people don't know where you're headed, and they can just focus on one little thing at a time, they can see down the road at the end, they can see that they have a greater level of skill than they knew they had, and they just needed a little coaching to get there. So I really applaud those of you who are willing to take that risk. And this is now
leap of faith.
Yeah, the third Quiltalong in which some of you have done this, and it isn't just a pattern to us. It's a tutorial, and it's a sort of method for helping you grow as quilters. That's our whole goal. It's helping you see your potential.
And when people look at a quilt like this, the finished quilt, and say, "There's no way I would have tried this because I would have been afraid I couldn't do the color work," by us creating this concept of the color code and a structure, as you put it together, not only is there a magical surprise, but you understand how everything works together. And I think to me, it's a lot different from a workshop. It's just like, it's percolating over more time.
You need the time, and I think that the videos also give you the ability to watch things and go back and start to really hear things differently over time. Then you just can't do it in a day. It's just too short. So there were a couple of other questions. One, somebody asked about a coloring page. I feel like the whole idea of using the color code is
like a coloring book, you mean?
No, what they were saying is that they basically wanted to control the way the colors fell, in which case you'd have to go back and totally redo. I don't know if you want to do that or not.
So I think the idea of a coloring page, if you want to create your own version from scratch with where all the colors go, you can certainly do that. Like, you could print out the final assembly diagram and kind of Sharpie on it. One of the things that will happen, though, is there are real constraints if you are using fat quarters about how much of each fabric you can use where. And so I would say also, hold off a bit until you start to see other people post their color codes. I think tonight the first person has posted a layout on the design wall of the complete quilt, not yet sewn together, but a different color code. And like, I'm super excited to see, because even though we virtually prototyped a lot of things, you're going to see different things. So don't just look at what we've done and say, how can I adapt that? If you're interested, I would wait and see what everyone does and see what you can learn from that.
There was another question also about size variations. Because no matter how many times we say it, people are still going to ask. I know it sounds so simple to say, hey, could you do this? I've already seen somebody ask half size and then twice the size. And I don't think you realize the hours and hours and hours it goes into developing a quilt like this with the measurements. It's just hundreds and hundreds of hours. And so we definitely cannot do size variations.
No, not of this quilt.
Hard no on that. Sorry.
But I will say
it's just too much.
There have been a couple of interesting discussions. You know, one person was talking about doing it in a queen size with 4 quarters and saying, do I do sashing in between? And I would encourage you to really look at the form of the quilt, because if you put 2 of them together without sashing, you're suddenly going to get a completely new dark band that happens. And although I personally wouldn't put sashing, because really interesting things happen when 2 of them touch each other. So
so to my response, if you want to make the quilt different, we did have some in Mission 6, some recommendations.
In the video we discussed it briefly.
But we can't, and then I think you can use the measurements of this quilt as a unit you could reproduce, or you can center and make 2 other blocks on either side.
But the math is really tricky.
We cannot.
I suspect as you laid things out, some of you will have noticed that the height of the outer row of blocks with the circle in it is not the same as the height of the next row. I can't remember, are they a quarter or a half inch? Probably a half inch different. There is a lot of detail that went into this to get proportions that would glow really nicely, to make things work with fat quarters that you had, to make sure that every fabric had a chance to have a role.
Right. So the question about, are you going to have us post the color codes with the finished quilts for the exhibition?
That's a really good question.
I think that would be hard.
I think it would be hard because a lot of people are going to put their color codes on the back. And I was thinking a lot about this with the exhibition, because I agree it would be really interesting to see the color code with it. I think it's just challenging structurally. I always think I want to design and make more quilts. I love setting up virtual exhibitions. There are only so many hours. So I think what I would recommend is for the virtual exhibition, we only have the front. However, on the Modern Quilt Studio Patterns and Fabrics page, please, when you're done, that's a great place to do a composite photo or 2 photos where you show your quilt and the color code. So I think for these purposes, let's have that on the page, and then the exhibition will just be the finished top.
Okay, then somebody was talking about quilting in a grid, and I think that using a quilting pattern that's a grid would work well with this quilt, and a wavy grid would also work well. So that very manageable on a domestic machine.
One thing we didn't talk about in the video, though, we gave lots of suggestions for quilting. One thing I would probably really advise against, we said that it wouldn't be a great quilt to do individual blocks with different patterns because it would ruin the continuity of the light. For the same reason, I would not stitch in the ditch.
Yeah.
Because that separates the individual blocks, and you want a lot of the flow in the concentric squares. So again, it's your quilt, do what you want, but that would be something that I would recommend avoiding probably. Next.
So Lee Baker wants to know, should we get ready for Transparency 2.0?
Yeah.
That's my...
We will not reveal anything coming up. We have so many projects going on.
Yeah. I can say this, that in May, we celebrate 25 years in our business.
It's
And
it's a big year for
that's
us.
a lot. And we will be doing all kinds of fun things from May 24 to May of 2025. There's going to be a year worth of shenanigans, and we will,
We don't stop thinking about this.
Yeah.
We were up, I think, till 11 o'clock last night working on.
We're working like a year and a half in advance, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So
there's lots of fun.
There's lots of fun coming. So there was also a question about working with a transparency layer cake. I would, if I had some leftover fabrics from a layer cake, I would be looking at making some of these units and reproducing them, because you've already got the transparency kind of palette there. So whether you make more x-ray blocks or whether you make more units that you enjoyed making, I would look at some of those units and do a grid of them to make a quilt. Or there's a lot of things that you can kind of build off of this.
Absolutely. And I mentioned that upper row, the perimeter row, is a different height than the one below it. You could trim them to be the same height so they're interchangeable. There's a lot of kind of mixing and matching you can do with this. But I think in general, you could even do a little mini quilt or a placemat playing with what you've learned about the two different values of the hues, and even making some cool stripes out of it.
So Jenny's asking about doing a half size. The measurements will work if you divide everything in half, except for the circles. Piecing circles any smaller than this is going to be really tricky, unless you maybe do it either stitch by hand, or you want to do applique or something like that.
And I will also say that if you were doing this half size, you're going to run into 1/8 inch increments.
Yeah.
It's not sized. That's another thing, as quilters, you understand the importance of the 1/4 inch. So one of the constraints of this entire quilt has to do with the 1/4 inch. And even when we had that semicircle, it was actually the smallest semicircle we've had in one of our patterns. And we had a real debate about it. Will it be frustrating? Will it not be? And we said, well, there are only 8 semicircles. And we both felt that with a clear tutorial, little video, you do it. And we saw the number of you who were doing their first curves and just nailed it. I think that's great. Going any smaller, nerve-wracking.
So, and then just in terms of general questions about transparency, we have 2 other projects that we've been waiting for the second printing of transparency to arrive before we
fabrics,
start.
Of the transparency fabric line, yeah.
Yeah, 2 other projects made with the transparency fabric line.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That we, and we will have kits of those, that we're waiting for the second printing to arrive, which we're told should arrive at some point this weekend. And as soon as we get the shipping notice, I haven't looked today whether it came or not, and so maybe it's not going to be till Monday. But at any rate, it's day by day. It's very soon. Once we have that second print run in-house, we'll have more fat quarter bundles, and then we will have 2 other projects that use the transparency line as well.
Right, and so, those of you who are really enjoying, maybe it's your first transparency, I think the next projects we're going to release with this line will be right up your alley.
They're a lot easier.
They're actually, they're very different from this.
Yeah. Sue Chrysler says, thank you for not giving us 20 semicircles.
Oh, Sue, I almost...
Semicircles, they make it though, you have to admit.
I'm looking in front of me, because I have a sketch here that had 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12.
They would hate us if we did.
I had one here that had 30, and we took one look at it and
they will hate us.
You get to answer the hate mail.
And I'm glad, Nancy, that the quilt is going together so easily for you. Yeah, that is also part of it, is that, this is such a complex quilt, but other than a little bit of sewing with those curves, it should have been like pretty straightforward.
And I
It
think
just requires accuracy.
accuracy, but also we tried to keep the finished units large enough that there would be a little stretch in the blocks, because it's so important to pin and match seams in the transparency quilt to keep the illusion. So if a finished unit is, say, 5x7 or something, there's still some give in that.
Yeah.
If you try to make a transparency quilt, and this is for a person asking about half size, if you half scale it, there is so much less room for error and less stretch, and it does become a little more finicky when you go to match your points, because if something is off by just a little sliver, but the block is this big, you don't notice it. If the block is half the size, that amount that's off kind of doubles.
Yes, Australia's in the house. Glad you enjoyed the finished quilt, and it reminds her of a stained glass.
Oh,
so
nice.
That's fun. So Teresa's just getting to see Mission 6. Oh, because she was working. Oh, I'm so glad. So glad you love it.
And I actually want to jump in really quickly with Lorraine's comment about stained glass. We kept those charcoal fabrics in the transparency line partly for that reason. If you will see that some people have quilts made totally from their stash where they're all blues, greens, reds, oranges, and no black, that are going to be absolutely beautiful. But when you include the black, no matter what your color code is, it creates a darkness that lets the colors become luminous. And I always talk about the difference between something being luminous and something just being bright.
Yeah.
And stained glass is luminous very much because it has the thin bands of metal, the copper that hold the glass in.
It's surrounded by darkness.
So when you see the colored light coming through the glass, it's in contrast to that dark.
And the stained glass on a white background would not look as luminous.
No, in the 70s and 80s, there was a real movement in liturgical art to use fused glass rather than stained glass, where you had these enormous, almost picture window panels of different colors of glass fused together as a modern interpretation of stained glass. And they're very beautiful, but they're not the same because they don't have that black contrast.
And you also don't have the light passing through them one layer
at a time. It changes things.
So there was a request to see the back of our quilt. I'm not sure what so here it is.
We haven't sewn our label on yet. We've been busy. I think we
had a few emails to deal with.
Okay.
So let's show them up close. The stitching
first,
and the gray
can you
stitching.
see? I can't see.
Yes, I think you can see some of it. So, I think, let's see, you can see,
is that too
hold
close?
up a little bit so they can see some more. There we go. I think that's a little bit easier to see the quilting. And this is the labyrinth quilting technique that we, was it in issue 9? Yeah, I think we discussed how we do it.
This is an example of our own pattern that we hand did and digitized, and are able to, with that, we're able to do it at different scales. This would have been agonizing to do.
But we are able to basically reproduce our own hand-guided quilting through this method.
Yeah. So typically what happens with that, I think with the labyrinth quilting, Weeks did the original labyrinth quilting totally by hand. I then looked at what she did and then manipulated that so it would work on our long arm, and it's great. So
Susan wants to know if stained glass looks good with black contrast, why do you recommend I'm guessing she means don't you recommend a border strip when joining the 4 blocks? Because we've already created that contrast with the shadow parts of the design, so you don't need that.
And
We've already
also-
done this. This takes the place of that black sachet.
But I'll show you another. Can you hold that corner so I
Yes.
can explain? So imagine that you had a mirror image and this quilt was flipped. You would have two of these dark bars, and this would become a solid dark band, and then there would be a light band. And the other thing is, oops, I'm trying to go, these kind of structural elements would continue straight through. If you had sashing, it would just end.
Look.
Oh, this is so clever.
This is cool.
Okay, we're about to do something cool.
Yeah.
Let me, I feel like
So we're sort of going to show
we're
you.
putting this in a loop.
So we can
Okay.
show you a little bit. And the thing is, if you had that black thing, Susan, look at that.
Look at that. If you had two side by side, does that make sense? And if you had a black
You would
sashing,
disrupt it.
so if you put two
Actually,
end
hold
to
on,
end,
hold on, look up.
oh, sorry, so
You have to
awkward.
yeah, but you get the idea.
Ah,
All right. Hold on.
there we go. That's kind of it.
Pull it down a little bit more in the bottom, the other way.
You got to pull yours.
Hold on.
This is so awkward.
There
There
we
we
go.
go. There we go.
So you can see what it would look like
If you had
for
two,
those of you like Susan and then Lee who are doing 4. You're going to see how this. Oh, don't
yeah,
worry.
she said she got
It
it.
connects it. Yeah, you can connect it, and that is what's going to make it more dynamic, because your eye is going to continue the pattern. And if you put a big solid bar there, you've broken the illusion.
And it was really hard because early on, some of you asked about specific measurements, wanting to make something bigger. And we knew what would work and what wouldn't work, but I kind of didn't want to open that can of worms. It gets so incredibly tricky because one of the common questions is, if I make 4 of them, do I need 4 bundles? Can I do it with 3 bundles? And it just,
I also feel
we feel very responsible.
we feel so responsible for your money, and I just thought, like, how could I encourage people to make 4? I just feel like, what if they don't like it? And then they're really going to hate me because I suggested they make 4 of them. So, I'm really glad that at least a couple of you were brave enough and had the means to be able to make 4, because I know not everybody can afford that. But it's going to be fantastic.
I can't wait to see them.
We can't wait to see them.
We didn't have the time to do that, so
Yeah, there's
I
no
want to
way.
see it.
Yeah.
And if you don't like it, send it to me. We'll put it on the bed. But I think that we knew the potential. We knew that even 2 end to end would make a fantastic kind of large napping quilt. But it made sense for us to just say, this is the size we're doing.
So Lee said she used 4 bundles, but after the second mission, I cut straight through. Have enough left, but not too much.
Great.
Good. I'm glad.
And this was also one of the tricky things, because a couple people messaged me individually, and if about how much fabric they needed. And the reality is, if you know you're making a queen, there are more efficient ways to do it, but that's just not what the pattern was. And people were really understanding that.
Can you answer the question about how much fabric is needed? How much fabric is needed for the backing?
So the backing, and this is on HQ, it's under Mission 6, and it's also listed under the fabric requirements. But 2.5 yards is what you need. You can get away with 2 yards if you don't have much shrinkage, and if you have 2.5 yards, you can piece the backing the way we show in Mission 6, which leaves a 2-inch band all the way around. Some people are sending things to long armors. Their long armors may require more, but you could sew just a leader strip onto it. Similarly, with binding, there are so many different binding methods that we use our one-step binding method that we use 2-inch strips.
It's on our YouTube channel.
So we really only needed about 14 inches of fabric to bind the quilt. If you're doing the one-step method, half a yard is fine. But some people use the kind of 3.5 method where it's doubled over and hand sewn. And then to be safe, I would say get 3/4. So 3/4, you're totally safe. Half, if you're binding the way we do, is plenty.
So Lisa's saying if she wanted to do a queen size, would you buy a yard of each color? Yes, that would be the way to go.
It would be the way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Barbara said her husband is encouraging her after seeing this. He wants to know if he can, she can get 2 or 3 more bundles.
Yeah. So hopefully on Monday we'll have them in stock.
Yeah.
We've got hundreds more coming. They, we have no idea how quickly they'll go, but we will.
We're going to continue to.
We're going to continue to keep them in stock.
And at least, you know. In theory, that the second printing shouldn't sell out as quickly as the first one did. What modifications would you suggest for a king? You know, that's another 20 inches larger, right?
So, you know, king sizes, as you all may have learned, there's not a standard size because a lot of it has to do with a drop. Many people who have king sizes beds also use box springs and have a larger, longer drop.
And the thickness of the mattress is such
changed. So
yeah.
You might start out with, like, this is another crazy thought, but you might have 4 like you do for a queen, and then you might make additional ones and cut them in half to mirror and stop. Like, you're gonna have to really
you're gonna have to play around with it.
What I would recommend is if you print out that final illustration that is in Mission 6 that shows the assembled quilt, print out a half dozen copies and just cut it up with scissors and paste it together. And just keep in mind that this quilt is 51 inches, the piece top, but depending on the batting and your quilting, you could lose anywhere from 2 to 6%. So if you're doing a queen or a king size, you're talking 6 to 8 inches that you will lose in shrinkage. So just keep that in mind.
You know, the other thing you could do would be to make adjustments in the layout so you can fine tune. You know, you can add additional rows or make the yellow thicker. I mean, there are things
I wouldn't do the little strip any thicker. It throws off on math.
No, but they would have to figure out the math themselves.
It would be hard. But sorry, what was it? The comment about cutting out of paper. One of the reasons we suggest this is over the years we've had commissions with clients in other countries and other states where we want to help them visualize what the quilt will look like. And we actually made these little folded flat cardboard cutouts that fold up into the bed that's the exact dimensions of their bed.
It's ridiculous.
And then there's a printout of a quilt that drapes over it. And we've had clients who have like 4 poster beds, and we've designed some very elaborate quilts that have corner cutouts, but when the corners drape over, the pattern continues around the corner, and we have to design that all for the shrinkage, for their specific bed. Some of these beds are in Europe where the sizes are completely different, and the paper cutout, I mean, low tech, it works.
And then we
so
mail
well.
it to them, and it's a little pop-up. It's a little pop-up bed with a quilt on it.
Yeah.
Lee says, like, can you add a light strip through the center both ways? That's exactly. See, this is why we do these videos.
Okay, that's cool.
Because what we were saying in the Mission 6 video is, don't just think about adding yardage. Think about extending the design. So anything you can do to extend the design, so remember like this, if you can extend, line it up, if you can do something that extends this band, for example, or these blocks or something like that,
You could add
then
to it.
that's how you make a new composition. It
It
isn't
is.
just throwing yardage at it. So extending the design is different from just
Making it bigger.
adding yardage.
And on that note, the way you would extend your design will depend on the context of your color code, because some designs are going to read much more plus shaped. Some will read more concentric square.
Right.
I think it's going to surprise you all, and I mean, it'll surprise us not as much because we prototyped it, but it will still surprise us to see what lines your eyes follow depending on how the color code reveals itself.
Yeah, and I think there's some questions with people asking Susan about, since she made 4, did she do 4 fat quarter bundles? The buying a yard is so much more efficient than buying fat quarter bundles, but because most people were doing it at this size, most people just started with a fat quarter bundle. But if you haven't purchased the fabric yet and you're thinking about it, and you want to do a large size, it's just way easier because you don't even have to worry about the cutting diagrams as much.
No, you wouldn't.
If you've got a yard,
If you've got a yard,
you can really be more free.
yeah,
you know?
and I'm in the Mission 6 video, those of you who have watched it know that I laughed that I made the mistake of our thin yellow band. I used the wrong yellow, which still looks fantastic in our quilt. That would never have happened with fat quarters,
Right.
because it wouldn't have, there
wouldn't have
wasn't
been
enough
enough of it.
fabric.
Yeah.
But we happen to have bolts of this stuff, so
Yeah.
I just was cutting
Yeah.
and didn't notice. So you'll actually have a little more freedom. Sometimes what looks tight on a fat quarter, 4 of them on a yard, there's actually a whole lot of extra.
Yeah, it's just the kind of limitation of pre-cuts in general.
But I also enjoy it.
The
I
pre-cuts?
enjoy the math of
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So there was also a question about when's the next one?
Because, do we get to rest, please?
So again, that's also a,
Yeah, we know when it is, but we're not telling you yet.
and the reason we're not telling you is that the logistics, we're trying to time fabric. I can tell you it's no time in the next couple of months. So
Yeah.
finish.
You've got
enjoy
time to make
this.
your queen size secret issue
Yes,
quilts.
exactly.
And you'll have time to make some of the other transparency quilts that we're about to release.
Exactly. But we don't want to announce any dates because, as we've mentioned before in the Quilts First, the terrorism in the Red Sea with the Houthi rebels targeting the ships has meant that all of the ships, instead of going through
the Red Sea there.
the Red Sea, they have to go down around. This is why the fabric is so late in getting to you.
Had to go around
They had
Africa.
to go down the Africa, and that adds so much to the entire process. And then there was a blizzard in New England.
Yes.
Because we don't know what is going to happen with the shipping channels, you can't imagine the logistics of trying to get fabric to you at a specific time. And so we don't want to announce any specific starting date until we're sure that the fabric is going to be ready for you. And but we can tell you that, we have so far we have not repeated any themes.
No.
And
because there are lots of themes.
Yes, there are lots of themes. At some point we may revisit a theme, but for now we have something very fun planned, and an optional fabric line that you'll be able to use with it.
Yeah, and that's another thing.
And it'll be very different from any of the previous Quiltalongs.
Once again, we do feel that it's important that when we design a fabric line that can work, that we also give you the option of working from your stash. And I know that's not typical of a lot of Quiltalongs, but
yeah.
I think it's really great to give people that option. It also adds wonderful variety, and we all learn from each other's choices.
Yeah. And, I'm glad, Donna, you're saying that you want to do New Day, because what I'm going to do on Monday in the Modern Quilt Studio Patterns and Fabrics group is start with like a roll call of like, what is everybody working on? Because
nice.
I think it will be fun. I can see from the orders that there's a ton of people who are just starting New Day right now, and a bunch of people who are starting summer camp right now. So I think one of the things that we've kind of always thought about with this group is that there will be a discrete time that the mystery component starts and ends in the quilt, but that people don't necessarily always work on one project at a time, or some people don't even want to start until they've seen the quilt.
Mm-hmm. That's very common.
The idea is that there's going to be a whole new group of people who are going to be making different quilts from our Quiltalong. And also our group has gone from 1,200 in January of 2023 to like 12,800.
For this subgroup, yeah.
Yeah, for the Patterns and Fabrics group. So we have a lot of new people who are just discovering our Quiltalongs and patterns,
and
I think it'll be fun.
Some of you listening in may be thinking of doing Secret Agent, haven't started. In the next week or so, we will be consolidating the 6 missions into one single download for people who are starting now. If any of you were to purchase Secret Agent right now, you would go to the headquarter website and you would download the 6 installments separately. What we do after each mystery quilt, sometimes a week after, we combine all of those into one big document, so it's a single click to get it.
But you'll be able to, if you've already purchased
But if you purchased it, you will still have access to those individual.
To the videos and everything.
And yeah, so it's just, there are a lot of logistics in that transitional period that it's a matter of time.
And Susan and anybody else, she said she just got her New Day long-armed.
Oh, wow, great.
The virtual quilt show for the virtual exhibition, Bill is still
I'm still uploading.
Yeah, uploading new editions.
I just realized that I recently uploaded a bunch and I forgot to change. I always put last updated or updated on so people know what the new ones. I don't think I changed the date.
Oh,
I'll go back and do that. But
That's okay.
We periodically refresh the exhibition. New quilts are always added chronologically. So if you just, sometimes it takes me a month to get to it, but I do keep it on my calendar to refresh those.
And I think, one of the things that really threw us this time is because it came up in my feed again that after New Day, I asked, or after summer camp, I can't remember, I asked if people wanted kits no, it was after New Day. And the overarching response was, no, we don't want kits. Somebody said, the only time I'd be interested in a kit is if I could be assured that my quilt wouldn't be exactly identical to somebody else's. But most people did not want fabric. And so it was with that assumption that we, ordered and planned for transparency. So
and then everyone wanted the fabric.
Yeah.
So we were just a little out of sync, but we get that we've learned a lot.
Bill, she said, can you possibly redo the kilo without the extra piece on? Can you make that correction in the pattern?
Yes, yeah, that is. I actually have my notes. I have about 3 notes of little changes. So now here's the catch. When we make it into one download, we update any little changes like that. We don't necessarily, I'll have to see whether I update it on the current download or not. I just want to be careful that we don't get people caught between versions. Yeah. So I tend to do those updates at the end, but I have to look. I have to look through it. I have a note on my desk right now to look at that, so I'm on that.
And I think we could just put a little asterisk, a footnote or something like that. Mm-hmm. You know, Sandra wants to know where you can find the exhibition page for the Quiltalongs. That should be under the What's New section on our website. All of the, or both, I guess at this point, there's just 2 of them.
But also, if you go to, I believe, oddly, I think it might be on the shop page, because I think we have the different Quiltalongs listed. I should remember, but we have the links to the exhibitions in a couple places, but they're probably on the What's New page, and they're also in one of the main navigation items. Yeah. I can't remember.
So Terry said she's been doing this with her friend, and they've had their own little sew-along summer camp. Fun. And you know that the social part of this and the community part of this is really important to us, and we've been delighted to hear of mothers and daughters and couples who do this, and
neighbors, and
and so
just quilting buddies.
We love hearing your stories, and we hope you will continue to tell us how you're making this. Mm-hmm. And you know, one of the sort of themes that you'll see as we do our 25th anniversary is friendship, and the friendship we've felt from you, and the friendship that we see around our Quiltalongs and around, you know, our classes. And we have a group of people who we taught a workshop with in 2004 that 20 years later still get together and
on their own,
and have little retreats and stuff. So the friendship aspect of quilting is really important to us. So so Deborah found it under the What's New. Yeah, that's right.
Thank you, Deborah, for looking, because I can't always remember what's where on our website, even though we do it all. So
Sue started with 3 other friends, and life got in the way for them, and she's finishing on their own. But the thing is that you finishing may inspire them to, you know, pick it up later. So I'm really, you know, all of your positive comments have just been, you know, that's our paycheck in many ways. Obviously, we need to be paid for our time and our bills and everything.
But it's rewarding to see.
It's so wonderful. And so we thank you for all of the support that you have given each other and have given us, and the good humor and all of that. So
and all the great secret agent names. Totally love them. Totally love them. And I when we printed out our label, I looked at it and I thought, we've been so busy we didn't give ourselves names.
I think we're Spy Masters.
We're Spy Masters. But still Spy Masters. We came up from the ranks of secret agents, right?
And you know, and guilds, Jan's mentioning guilds. We have, I know of quilting bees too, who are doing it as a group. Mm-hmm. And you know, I think there isn't really enough. I don't think our society values that as much as I think it should be valued, in terms of the epidemic of loneliness in our society, and the way that it, you know, I mean, there's science about those ties and those bonds and the social connections actually extending your life and your mental health.
More time to quilt.
Yeah, more time to quilt. So, you know, we really are heartened when we see people taking up that offer to kind of do it as a group. So.
And also, it can be actually a very kind of wonderful solitary thing as well.
Yeah.
For some people, it's just their quiet time, and that can be a completely different role it can have, and that's nice.
Absolutely. What is your
Oh,
favorite
right.
agent name?
I can't play favorites. I would get in
No,
trouble.
no, we can't.
But
I think, you know, what's really, it just brings us joy to see you having fun. That is, you know, it makes us feel like the long hours and, you know, the thousands, literally thousands of emails and all of that is totally worth it, because it feels like there's a, you know, there's a purpose to it, and it's appreciated. Our time and our expertise are appreciated. Oh yeah, Heat and Bond, that was pretty good.
that I love that too. There were so many good,
there were a lot of great
really
ones.
good agent names, and I think that the intention of fun, learning, community, and at the end having just really kind of dramatic quilts that were unique to you, and unique in general. I mean, I really, for those of you who do belong to guilds and might have guild shows, these will look great.
Oh yeah.
These are the kinds of quilts that you see 100 feet away.
Yeah.
And they have a huge impact. But
you will blow them away at show and tell.
Yeah. These are, they have that far away, mid-range, and up close.
Yeah. Up
close, you're rewarded with the look, you know, the craftsmanship and the color work. So I think they're pretty cool quilts.
I'm glad that Susan's new favorite technique is half circles.
Susan, don't get me going. I love curves.
Yeah.
I love them because every time you do it, once you get the hang of it, it turns out wonderfully. And it just opens up all these new possibilities in form that you can do.
So Jessica says she can't wait to show this at her guild, and Louise says her summer camp is at entered in her local quilt show.
Oh, great.
So that's great.
Great.
And questions about your secret agent hoodie. You know, you're going to still see it. You're going to still see mine, even though the Quiltalong is over, because it's still so much fun too.
And it's interesting, the hoodies, those of you who got t-shirts or hoodies, our little shop, our pop-up shop, which is hosted through Printify, is something that we will continue to do because people have enjoyed it. And I've actually been, the last couple weeks, I've been working with a team at Printify with their kind
Who are in Latvia or something?
Oh, in the last 2
Estonia?
weeks, I was working with someone in Estonia, another woman in Portugal. I had another email this morning that I'm kind of talking to them about their concepts for designing and what they want to do with their shop. And it was really nice because I was able to talk about what you all were doing. They were very, very interested in it. So
Debbie Chen, I tolerate her.
Oh, we haven't totally won you over yet,
Debbie.
Debbie.
Oh, 5 people are doing it in their guild.
Oh, how cool.
Oh, so they're going to be featured together in their fall show. Oh, it's going to be so cool because they'll all be different.
That is
so
cool.
Fun. Nancy, please send us pictures of that. Post it in the group, please.
Absolutely.
We would love. Susan's like, I'm there with you. But then you had to make 4 of them. So, okay. So anyway, we will let you get back to your families and friends on Friday night.
And we're going to go back to our cozy, safe house.
Yes, we're going to walk through the tunnel. And I have to tell you, we have to tell them about the photo.
Oh, which one?
The final photo.
Oh, the bunker.
Yes, the bunker.
So this is actually a little behind the scenes. I admit.
Curves were easier than the singing.
So the final reveal photo with the quilt in that bunker.
We agonized over it.
We
agonized.
We love kind of location scouting, and we take shots all over. And Weeks had a really interesting idea for the final photo that involved going up to the train tracks in our town, the elevated train tracks, and shooting down the tracks. And she was walking the dog, so couldn't go into the station. I said, I'll go in. And I went in.
Actually, I found out you can go in the station.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
So that's why I went in.
So then I turned the corner to go up to the platform, and I saw
there was that tunnel.
I'm like, this is it. This is it right now.
I was pretty sure that bunker was under your house.
But
the summer camp's in the backyard.
But it's always fun finding, like, we knew that the lighting, that kind of spotlight lighting that's already in that tunnel.
Narrow tunnel.
And it's a creepy tunnel. When our daughter joined us for dinner tonight on her way to work, and she saw the photo, and she's like, that tunnel is so creepy, because she knows when she's taking the train to the city. Donna
says she's going to do a photo shoot at the Spy Museum.
Oh, do it!
Oh, do it.
Please.
We want to see it. We want to see it.
Yeah, so every photo, we think carefully. Even the safe house is worth, like, that cozy safe house is my sister's farmhouse in France.
The quilt would look great on the Frank Lloyd Wright studio. Yeah, so if any of you are at the metro station in Oak Park, you will see that tunnel, that creepy tunnel, and it will be really fun to, we need like a little plaque there.
That's it.
This is the tunnel to the safe house.
Etching of it, yeah.
That's right.
Maybe you're giving me an idea.
Yeah, I know. There's no end to it.
So thank you all, and we really appreciate your enthusiasm. Yes. Yeah.
Yes, we will see you soon, and thank you so much for all your positivity.
It's been
really
wonderful.
Fun.
So we're going to go rest.
Yes, exactly.
And keep posting the updates as you piece things. A couple people have asked, is it okay to post progress, anything from now on? Now,
and this is why we did it this way.
Yeah, because
it's a little bit
March
easier.
20th will be the date that submissions for the exhibition open, but you're free to submit, to post anything before then.
Yeah, and then we'll have, do you remember the date of the actual exhibition?
April. I don't remember. It's on the on HQ.
Yeah.
But it's about 2 weeks after, I believe.
But the one thing actually I would like to know before we leave, this is what's referred to as a Cajun goodbye in my family. The one thing I would like to know is, because of the holidays, we gave 2 months notice for this and announced it, I think, in November 1st. That was, no, the fabric was available November 1st. I think we
announced on October 1st.
We announced on October 1st it was coming. And because I thought, like, people are too busy around the holidays. But then for other times of year where there aren't holidays, is a month enough?
Between the announcement and the start?
Yes,
between the announcement. How much advance notice do you want to know?
Because when there's fabric that people might want to buy, we need to be able to get all of those orders out, and that takes time. So is a month enough time? Yes, people are saying. Okay. All right, that's helpful to know, because I feel like...
but we also have to keep in mind that we have agents all over the world, so we wanted to make sure things could ship abroad, and
I might go 6 weeks.
6 weeks maybe.
That's
because if it's too long, people get restless.
It was torture to wait 3 months.
I thought it was really. We actually originally were going to only do 2 months. We had to change it to 3 months because of something going on at the fabric company.
Yeah.
I thought 3 months was a long time, but that was not necessarily our choice there.
The problem was that the fabric company needed to promote it to shops, and they have to do things way in advance. And so we had planned to announce it November 1st, and then they told us they needed to announce it at market. So that was
October
why
1st. It was tricky.
That's why that took, and 2 months is better because it takes fabric long to get to Canada.
Yeah, that's true.
How about, you didn't even deal with the South Africa situation.
Yeah, we were shipping all over the world.
6 weeks with shipping, I think, is actually good. So we will We will keep that
good.
in mind.
So,
Okay.
okay, we really will
Yes.
go.
Good night.
Thank you all.
Thank
Good
you
night.
so much.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.